Hello, class and professor. So I chose to look at my influencer as Henry Ford. So he's one of the most influential men in the early 1900s. Let's start at the beginning. So Ford was born in Michigan in 1863. His families were farmers, and so by all accounts, Ford should have been raising crops, planting seeds, but he didn't enjoy the work. But his family was well off; that allowed him to attend school, and he started off as a mechanic in Detroit. Detroit grew substantially in the second half of the 1800s. During his time as a mechanic, Henry Ford continued to educate himself, and he read an article about a gas engine being developed in Great Britain. In 1889, Henry himself actually got to work on what was called the Otto four-stroke engine, and he saw the advantages in its use. And so, because Henry grew up around the steam engine, he had a really vast knowledge of how they worked. One reason why he became a mechanic on steam engines early in his life, right? So, however, the gas engine ran off of electricity, which Ford did not really have any knowledge. So, what does he do? Where he goes and works for the Edison Electrical Company. And the electrical company was using steam engines to create electricity. So Henry is able to get hired on pretty quickly. And the nice thing about his employment, he had only worked on the steam engines when there were issues. After he fixed them, he could spend his free time however he wanted. So he spent that free time looking at how the systems worked, the electrical systems worked. So through trial and error, and after 3 years after creating his first gas engine, he built his first vehicle called the quadricycle. Simple frame with an engine, right? Pretty amazing feat for just 3 years. But one of his early issues with this vehicle was it kept constantly overheating. There was no cooling system developed. So of course, what does he do? He creates a cooling system. And then in 1899, Ford created the Detroit Automobile Company. But he had a lot of struggles, right? One of the things was his supply chain. This is all brand new, was constantly running late. He's missing products and equipment and things he needed to build the vehicles. So in 3 years later, 1902, his own company voted him out. And so he's without a job. So what does he do after that? Well, instead of getting all down on it, he decides to start focusing on the consumer because he was focusing on the businesses trying to develop delivery vehicles. So he now starts thinking about consumer vehicles. So he develops what's called the Model A. And over the next couple of years, he continued to make all these different vehicles, making his supply chain better. And to do that, he went to a company that made everything there. So one company was called the Dodge Brothers Company, right? And then eventually Henry created an assembly line, which allowed him to produce a lot more vehicles than all his competitors. In 1906, so just 4 years removed from getting fired, he created the Model N, the highest sold vehicle in America. And in 1905, Ford was making 1,600 cars a year. A year later, because of the assembly line, he's making 8,400 cars a year, a lot more than 20 cars his first 2 years at his original factory. So then in 1906, Ford started using vanadium steel to create his Model T. His Model T was so successful that he had 25,000 orders for it, and he wasn't able to produce that many. In 1909, he's able to produce a little more than 17,000 of the Model T. So he creates a second factory. And then by 1916, Henry Ford has built more than 500,000 Model Ts. And with the inflation, you think, well, the prices are going to continue to go up. But no, in the 6 years he developed the Model T, he cut the price for that vehicle nearly in half, also paying his workers more because he is able to sell more units. And so, well into the 1920s, more than half the cars in the United States were Ford Model Ts. They were just substantially better than any of the competitors. Cadillac, which was the name of the company that, after firing Ford, that Detroit vehicle company, the guy that took over it made Cadillac. And then Dodge got in their own business and made Dodge, and he had all these companies trying to catch up to Ford, but he was just way far ahead of them. That concludes my video. Thanks for listening, guys.